Happy Pentecost. So Pentecost is one of the 7 Jewish holidays, and it was given in Leviticus. So in the Old Testament times, they celebrated a Pentecost, and then it had a new significance. So we see in Acts chapter 2, it had a new significance in the birthing of the church. So there's a New Testament significance. Jewish communities celebrate Pentecost. Christian communities celebrate Pentecost, and it's a great holiday. And Jesus used, God used these 7 feasts in the annual rhythm of the Jewish people, and it was to raise up every generation to know who God is and what God has done and what God has promised. And so he gave them a bunch of things, and part of that, he gave them the scriptures, the Torah, right? The Tanakh. And then he gave them these feasts, and they would do it together in rhythm, and they would grow and learn all about God. And this particular Pentecost, it means 50. And the significance of Pentecost is the Jewish people, they would celebrate Passover. They would celebrate the Passover, which, if you remember, was when they were slaves in Egypt for 400 years. And then Moses shows up, and he's going to rescue them. He's going to take them out of Egypt, out of slavery. And the night before they're rescued, he tells them to have this dinner, this Passover dinner, the night before they're free. They have this Passover dinner. And then every year, annually, they would celebrate this Passover dinner in remembrance of who God is. This is a God that rescued them from slavery, and what he had done. He had rescued them from slavery, and what he had promised. He had promised to lead them and give them their own land. I mean, if you were a slave, wouldn't that be amazing? Like, oh, we get our own land. And he was going to make them a great nation. He was going to bless them, and he was going to bless the world through them. And so they would celebrate this on Passover. And then 50 days later, they would celebrate Pentecost, because after they came across the Red Sea, they were in the wilderness for about 50 days. And then Moses went up to Mount Sinai, and he received the Torah, the law, the instructions of how to live in God's blessing. And this was, the Jewish people recognized this as the new birth of the nation of Israel. At Mount Sinai, the 12 tribes finally come together, and the nation of Israel is birthed. And they would celebrate that every year on Pentecost. And this is a big deal. And here's why I think this is really cool for us. A lot of the rich lessons that the Hebrew people would have learned about in the Torah, in their upbringing, in experiencing these feasts, a lot of the richness of God, the ways of God, the promises of God would have been instilled in them. And these things are a heavy influencer to Paul, the Apostle Paul, who wrote the book of Ephesians, which we're studying. And so you could just imagine when Paul is writing, he's influenced by all of this rich history. The words that he chooses have rich significance. The analogies he uses, they have rich biblical significance. And just imagine if we understood those better. If we understood and we could see things the way Paul could see things, then we would better understand what he's trying to tell us in the book of Ephesians. Paul was a Jewish man who was immersed richly in the scriptures. He was educated in the rabbinical school of a man named Gamaliel, right? So this would be like him having a doctorate degree in some theological seminary, right? He's very well educated as a Jewish man. And if we could better understand, then when we would read Ephesians and the letters of Paul, we would have a deeper understanding. We would get it. Sometimes I read the Bible and I don't get it. Anyone else? Well, I want to spend some time this morning, and I know this is going to feel a little bit weird. It is going to be a little bit weird because it's going to look a lot different than a traditional sermon. I want to spend some time this morning really just digging into some key concepts from the Hebrew Scriptures, from the Old Testament. I want us to understand, almost put on some Hebrew, some really just like entry-level Hebrew lenses. And then what I want to do is I want to build up for about 20 minutes. I just want to spend some time really understanding and getting ourselves in rhythm with the way Paul would have thought. And then I simply just want to read Ephesians chapter 3 with you. With those lenses, I want to read it together. You have it on your notes. And then we're going to pass the microphone around, and we're literally just going to say, what did you guys observe in there with your new lenses? And then we'll pray together. You guys give for that? All right. Here's how we'll do this. I want to look, and in your notes, if you open those up, not to the long part with a lot of words in it, that's Ephesians 3 from Eugene Peterson's The Message. But I want to look at these 5 concepts on the other side. The context of togetherness in the Bible, the purpose of a temple in the Bible, the significance of a blessing in the Bible, the concept of God's glory in the Bible, and the plan of God through all of these things. So preliminary notes, if you guys want to just grab your pen and start writing down some notes, this should all hopefully come together. The context of togetherness is simple. The context of togetherness is simple. God brings ordinary people together, and together he works through them to do the things that he does. Sounds simple, right? But in a hyper-individualistic world like our Western culture, this is something we don't really grasp. We can understand it conceptually, but it doesn't make sense to our lifestyles. We think very individualistically. We don't think in community. We don't think in group. That's really weird in all of history. We're the first kind of culture that's ever lived that way. But biblically, the context of togetherness, God brings people together before doing his greatest kingdom work. Togetherness. And we'll see this over and over and over again throughout the Bible. He'll bring people together as he's beginning to do new works. Now, the purpose of a temple. The purpose of a temple. A temple in the Old Testament and in the Bible, a temple is a space or a place where the God of heaven dwells with humans on earth. A temple is simply a place or a space where God in heaven dwells with the people of this earth. Temple. The significance of a blessing. And now in our Western culture, people say like #blessed, and then most of us are like, whatever, right? Blessing, like it's overused, it's Christianese, but we need to get over that, and we need to understand like when Paul's talking about it, when the Bible's talking about it, it's very significant. A blessing has 2 kind of significant parts to it in the Bible. One, when God blesses something, it's a public declaration of a favored status before God. When God blesses someone, it's a public declaration, this person is blessed by God, that my favor is upon this person. And it's the power and goodness of God that is manifesting itself in that person's life or in a community that's blessed. So when people see a community of God being blessed, or someone being blessed, or good things happening, in the Old Testament, the Jewish people and the surrounding people would have said, "Oh, God is blessing them." Those are God's blessings we're seeing. And when God lays his hand on someone or blesses someone, it's a public declaration of favored status with God. Now, the concept of glory in the Bible, all throughout the Bible, this concept. So the nature of God's glory in the Bible has to do with weightiness. Weightiness. Or you might say like big dealedness. When something is glorious, it's weighty. It's a big deal. It's magnificent. It's some of the words that the Bible uses for God, right? It's immeasurable. He's immeasurable. If you tried to measure him, we couldn't measure him in any way, by volume, by length. There's no way to measure God. He's too big, right? Or he's inscrutable. We can't fully understand him. He's too great. We can't grasp how great he is. The weightiness. Now, this is something I want you guys to really hone in on. When we think about God's glory, God's weightiness, another way that the Bible often refers to this is by God filling something or talking about the fullness of God. The fullness of God. Think about the weightiness of God or the fullness of God. These are in sync to the Hebrew mind, right? The fullness of God, or when God fills something, you should automatically, as a good Hebrew student, think, oh, this is referring to the bigness of God, the glory of God. And the purpose of God's glory is how God makes himself known to us and through us. So God is big. When you get a taste or a glimpse of God, you're seeing his glory. You're experiencing his glory. It is the way he makes himself known to you because he is glorious, right? And it's the way he makes himself known through us. So Isaiah the prophet talks about this. He says, you are created for God's glory. You're created to know God and to make God known. You're created for the glory of God. In Isaiah 26, he goes, the desire of my soul is to know God and make God known, right? He's all about the glory of God. He wants to experience God's weightiness, and he wants everyone else to experience God's weightiness. And now the plan of God through this all is quite simple. Over and over again, what God does is he unites ordinary people. He unites ordinary people under his name. His blessing is like when he blesses you, it's like putting his identity, his name. Your name now goes with me. I want you to carry my name with you. You're blessed by me, right? God unites ordinary people under his name, and he makes himself known to them, and he makes himself known through them. This is the story over and over again in the Bible. So we go back to Genesis. In the Garden of Eden, the garden was a temple. The garden was a temple. God created these humans, right, Adam and Eve, and he places them in this garden, and it's a temple. It's a place or space where God has chosen, the God of heaven has chosen to dwell with these humans. It's a temple. It's a garden temple. He brings them together, right? It's not good for Adam to be alone. So he makes him Eve. And now they're together. He puts them in the temple together. What does it say about them? God blessed them. He is a public declaration of his favor upon them. And you might ask at this point, well, it's just them. Who's watching? Public declaration. Who's watching? Biblically, all of creation is watching, and all of heaven is watching. This is important because in Ephesians 3, Paul's going to talk about like when we do this, when we display God's glory by coming together and living as a blessed people under God's name, when we do this, it displays the goodness and the wisdom of God to the angels, right? They're watching. So he blesses them, and then he tells them what? Go fill the earth. As good Hebrew students, when you hear fill something, what do we think about? God's glory, right? God's making himself known to them and making himself known through them. That's why it says, go fill the earth, multiply and fill the earth. Take my goodness that you're experiencing in Eden, you're experiencing my goodness. All of this stuff I created. You can eat from any of it, right? Just not this one tree, but all this goodness is all yours to enjoy. And I'll be here. I'll walk with you in the cool of the night. I'll be here making myself known to you. But the game plan is go fill the whole earth with my goodness. He brings them together under his name to know him and to make him known. That's the pattern. Brings people together, blesses them, God's favor upon them. They're now identified as God's people, and they're to make the glory of God known all throughout the earth. That's the pattern. What's the problem? What's the problem? God's blessings in the Bible always come with obedience to God's instruction. So what's the problem with Adam and Eve? Why didn't it work? They didn't obey him. Just the one simple thing, right? They didn't obey him. And we see this pattern go over and over again, and then we get to Genesis chapter 12, and we see Abram. God makes himself known to Abram. He gives him a covenant. I will make you a great nation. As Hebrew students, bring together a people. I will make you a nation. I'll bring you together as a people. I will bless you. I'll put my name on you. You'll be the people of my name. I'll be your God. You'll be my people. And all of the nations will be blessed through you. You guys getting it? God's plan is always bring people together, bless them, make yourself known to them, make yourself known through them. Always. How does he accomplish this with Abram? Well, we know that there's Abraham, right? And then he has Isaac. And then Isaac has Jacob. And then in this Bible, Jacob's name is changed to Israel. That's where we get the nation of Israel. And he has 12 sons. That's where we get the 12 tribes of Israel. And then they have one of the sons, Joseph. He gets sold into slavery in Egypt. That's how they get to Egypt for 400 years. But they're a big family reunion at this point. They're not a nation. When they enter into Egypt, it's a big family, not a nation. 400 years in slavery, one of the things that God does is they grow into a huge nation. God makes them into a huge nation. And then they cry out to God. He sends Moses. Moses comes, and you know the whole story, right, of Exodus, but then he tells them, have a Passover meal. Have a Passover meal the night before I'm going to rescue you out of Egypt. And now he takes this people out of Egypt. They go through the death of the waters. The Hebrew people might have looked at that. Like they literally passed through death. And then they entered into new life as a nation on the other side. God makes them a new nation. And then 50 days later, they're wandering around. The tribes had been separated. Remember, how did Joseph get sent to Egypt? His brothers sold him into slavery. Talk about family division. This is a divided people. This is a messed up people. This is a Jerry Springer show waiting to happen. And now God, in this big, beautiful narrative on Mount Sinai, brings the 12 together. He goes up and he sends Moses up to get the Torah, the 10 Commandments. And he says, if you will follow these, I will bless you. Because blessing comes with obedience. So now they have the instructions. Obey God, and I will bless you. And all the things I said will happen. And I'll bless you as a nation. And then all the nations will see my glory and be blessed through you. It's always been. And that's what we celebrate Pentecost, right? Passover, 50 days later, Pentecost. But it's all about bringing people together, right? And then having them annually go to the temple on the 50th day after Passover and celebrate who God is, what God has done, what God has promised. He's the God who rescued us out of slavery. He's the God who gave us the Torah. He gave us the instructions of how to live as his blessed people. He gave us promises. In Ezekiel 44, it says this, I looked, and the glory of the Lord filled his temple, and I fell face down. This is what they would experience when they would go into the temple, which is where God dwells. Do you see this picture? Filling the temple, God's glory. Glory and filled. God making himself known to you and through you, and his blessings coming with his glory in the temple. Haggai 2:7, I will shake all the nations so that the treasures of all the nations will come, and I will fill this house with glory, says the Lord of armies. So when God would fill the temple, or when he would spread the fullness of God, this is him exercising his plan. Bring people together, make myself known to them, make myself known through them. Know God, obey God, make God known by displaying God's goodness everywhere you go. Know God, obey God, put God on display, share God. How many of you are seeing a consistent biblical pattern? God wants his people to come together, to dwell together in his presence, in his temple, to know God, to obey God and experience his blessings, and to make God known, and then repeat in every generation. This is God's plan. What's the problem? People of God have an obedience issue. Now we get into the New Testament. Jesus comes because of the obedience issue. We can't do it. And Jesus makes a way where there has been no way. No other human has been able to do it. And he makes a way. Through his grace, he's now saving people. Not through the law, but through the filling of his people with his Holy Spirit. So Jesus, on the night before he was betrayed, what did he do? He had a Passover meal with his disciples. He brought a group of people together. The night before Israel passed through the Red Sea, they had a Passover meal. Now, the night before Jesus passes through the grave, they have a Passover meal. Jesus dies, he raises from the dead, we know that, right? And then 50 days later, when they're celebrating Pentecost, in Acts chapter 2, it tells us they were obedient to God, to Jesus. What did he tell them to do? Stay together, pray, wait for me. They were together, obeying God. And then what does it say? He filled the room. Good Hebrew students, what are we thinking? God's glory has shown up. God's glory has filled the room. What's God gonna do now? They get so excited. They go outside and they start telling everybody about Jesus. His plan is initiated on Pentecost, right? The Holy Spirit, they come together. They obey God. They're praying. They're waiting. He fills the room. They leave the room. They tell everybody about Jesus. They're speaking in all the different languages because it's representing the gospel goes to all the nations. They're speaking in all the tongues of all the nations. That's God's plan. Bring all the people together. You guys get it? Acts chapter 2, Pentecost is just the same old story with the Ruach of God, a new power, a new hope, a better hope, because Jesus has come. How many of you guys are seeing the pattern? God has a plan. Make himself known to ordinary people. Bring them together. Dwell with them. Teach them to obey all that Jesus taught. Bless them. with identity as his people, with his name. We bear the name of Jesus. And then through them, make himself known to people from every walk of life, from every corner of the earth. Now our passage today is in Ephesians chapter 3. Ephesians chapter 3, you have the version of the Message, but if you look at the CSB, which we normally look at, Ephesians chapter 3, it breaks up into two large chunks. The first part and the second part all begin with, for this reason. For this reason. Paul, in chapter 3, he goes, for this reason. For this reason is what's called a conjunction, right? Conjunction, junction, what's your function? A conjunction conjoins what you're currently looking at with something that came before it. What Paul is saying in chapter 3, for this reason, he's saying, because of the things I've already said to you in chapters 1 and 2, I want to continue this thought with some new thoughts. I'm going to build upon this. So chapter 1, some key verses. Chapter 1, verse 3. Blessed, if you can just listen, and I want you guys to do this. We just spent some time putting on some really elementary level Hebrew glasses. Think of our key terms. Think of what Paul is saying. Think of the words he's using. Think of what they mean in the context of the Hebrew people. Blessed is the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us with every spiritual blessing in the heavens in Christ. What's a blessing? God proclaiming his favor publicly upon you. You are the people of God. God's blessed you. He's made you his people. He's chosen to make you his people, me his people, right? We're ordinary people. We're messy. Not everyone's gonna like the choices God makes, right? Not everyone's gonna like the choices of who God picks, but he does. He blesses us. Verse 9 and 10, he made known to us the mystery of his will, his plan, according to his good pleasure that he purposed in Christ as a plan for the right time to bring everything together in Christ, both things in heaven and things on earth. What does God do? He brings people together, ordinary people together. And now he's letting us know this mystery. He's starting with us. He's bringing his people together. He's going to spread it to other people. And his plan is to unite everything in heaven and on earth together. He wants to restore it to paradise, to Eden. In verse 22, and he subjected everything under his feet and appointed him as head over everything for the church, which is his body, the fullness of the one who fills all things in every way. Good Hebrew students, what are we talking about? God's glory, right? What he's saying is we're the church. He's brought us together. We're the people of God. We're the body of Christ. He's the head, which he's chosen to fill us and to spread the fullness of God to enact his plan, right? It's the same thing. God is bringing a people together. He's going to bless them, teach them to be obedient. He's going to make himself known to them. He's going to fill the earth. He's going to make himself known through them. He's going to bring the glory of God on this earth. He's going to unite all things under the glory of God. Then we get into Ephesians chapter 2, verses 1 through 10, right? He makes dead people, spiritually alive. Adam and Eve sinned. When they ate, what did it say would happen? They would die spiritually. And they did. They hid from God. And then God comes and he covers them with animal skins. Something had to die in order to cover their shame, right? There's already this gospel message of what God does, right? He makes people that are spiritually dead, he makes them alive. The Israelite people, they have this Passover meal. They're as good as dead. They're slaves. They're living dead lives. And then he says, have this Passover meal, and then I'm gonna literally bring you through the Nile River, the Red Sea. I'm going to bring you through the Red Sea. And it's like they would have looked at that like you're going into the grave, to death. And they came out alive. And he birthed a new birth for a new nation, right? God makes us spiritually alive. Ephesians 2, 1 through 10. And then in verse 11 through 20, through this gospel, God's plan is to bring together all types of people. Remember, we looked at that last week. Like the Jewish people wanted a better version of Jewishness. And then Paul starts bringing in these non-Jewish people, right? These Gentiles. And people are bothered by that. Why? They don't know our rules, right? They're coming over to grandma's house and like you're supposed to take your shoes off. They don't take their shoes off, right? These people are barbarians, right? Like who wants them in your house? These unclean Gentiles. God does. Paul does. People hate it. But that's God's plan. He's bringing together all types of people. And he's filling his house with his people. And the people don't like it. Not everyone likes it. Matter of fact, when we read chapter 3, we're gonna see Paul is put in prison. Why? In the book of Acts, it tells us Paul is put in prison for one reason. He's welcoming Gentiles into the kingdom of God. So it says, he gives his testimony in Acts. He goes, like, God made himself known to me on this road to Damascus. I was far from God. I was an enemy of God, but through either a dream or a vision, I'm not sure, God made himself known. He spoke to me. Jesus spoke to me and he said, why are you persecuting me? And then Paul got it. He's like, okay, I'm going to start following Jesus, right? And then he goes, and Jesus gave me this instruction. I'm sending you now to the Gentiles. In Acts, it says the response. It said, up till that point, they were fine with it. When they heard that he was going to the Gentiles, they said, let's wipe this guy off the earth. That's what it says. Now he's in prison. He's in prison for doing what God called him to do, inviting all different types of people into the family of God, to be blessed by him and to be part of the blessing, the blessed nation under Jesus in Christ. And then it says in verse 21 and 22, he's making this people into a temple. He's now making this people into the space or the place where God dwells. Does that make sense? Get a little bit more kind of understanding? Now I want to do this. It's experimental. It could go really bad. It could go really good. It's really up to you guys. So the pressure's off me. All the pressure's actually on you guys right now. Well, really the Holy Spirit, but he doesn't really feel the pressure, so it's you guys. Will you listen to the Holy Spirit right now? Ephesians chapter 3. Well, I'm going to read it. And I want to ask you guys if you're able to stand. Now, if you have a bad knee or bad back and standing is more distracting, just stay seated. But if you are able to stand, then I want to invite you to stand. I'm going to read it. I gave you the version that I'm going to read so you can read along with. I want you to try to look at it through these new Hebrew lenses. Try to pick up on the words Paul's speaking of. Try to understand what is he saying. And then what we're going to do, here's the experimental thing. Then I'll have you guys sit down. We're going to pass around the microphone. And I just want to hear from you guys, what did you hear? What do you observe in this passage? What are we learning together in this passage? And then we're going to spend some time praying. Fair? Ephesians chapter 3 from Eugene Peterson's version. This is why I, Paul, am in jail for Christ, having taken up the cause of you outsiders, so-called. I take it that you're familiar with the part I was given in God's plan for including everybody. I got the inside story on this from God himself, as I just wrote you in brief. As you read over what I've written to you, you'll be able to see for yourselves into the mystery of Christ. None of our ancestors understood this. Only in our time has it been made clear by God's Spirit through the holy apostles and prophets of this new order. The mystery is that people who have never heard of God and those who have heard of him all their lives, what I've been calling outsiders and insiders, now stand on the same ground before God. They get the same offer, the same help, the same promises in Christ Jesus. The message is accessible and welcoming to everyone across the board. This is my life work, helping people understand and respond to this message. It came as a sheer gift to me, a real surprise. God handling all the details. And when it came to presenting the message to people who had no background in God's way, I was the least qualified of any of the available Christians. God saw to it that I was equipped, but you can be sure that it had nothing to do with my natural abilities. And so here I am, preaching and writing about things that are way over my head. The inexhaustible riches and generosity of Christ. My task is to bring out in the open and make plain what God, who created all this in the first place, has been doing in secret and behind the scenes all along. Through followers of Jesus like yourselves gathered in churches, this extraordinary plan of God is becoming known and talked about even among the angels. All this is proceeding along lines planned all along by God and then executed in Christ Jesus. When we trust in him, we're free to say whatever needs to be said, bold to go wherever we need to go. So don't let my present trouble on your behalf get you down. Be proud. My response is to get down on my knees before the Father, this magnificent Father who parcels out all heaven and earth. I ask him to strengthen you by his Spirit, not a brute strength, but a glorious inner strength, that Christ will live in you as you open the door and invite him in. And I ask him that with both feet planted firmly on love, you'll be able to take in, with all the followers of Jesus, the extravagant dimensions of Christ's love. Reach out and experience the breadth, test its length, plumb the depths, rise to the heights, live full lives, full in the fullness of God. God can do anything, you know, far more than you could ever imagine or guess or request in your wildest dreams. He does it not by pushing us around, but by working within us. His Spirit deeply and gently within us. So glory to God in the church. Glory to God in the Messiah, in Jesus. Glory down all generations. Glory through all millennia. Oh, yes. You may be seated. What we want to do now is I just want to ask, what did you observe in this passage? I know it's a long passage, and I know that we spent a long time trying to wrap our minds around some of these concepts that might hopefully stand out to you in the passage. But what did you guys hear? And you have it right there with you. All right, we got Kalia. We got a mic coming around.
I see here that the generations, the ancestors before, missed it. None of our ancestors understood this. And then I think like the response is, will we get on our knees before our Father with our feet firmly planted on his love, and this will pass Christ's glory down to all the generations. And I just see the beauty in that. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. So rich. Yeah. The same plan has been, we could see it now, right? We see it in the garden, we see it in Abraham, but somehow they missed it. That's what he's saying, like they missed it. We don't want to miss it, right? We don't want to miss it. What else? Yeah, Maxine. Ingrid has her Fitbit on, so if we could just pre-plan like over here and then over here and then over here and over here, she'll love that.
I think for me what jumped out was when we trust in him, we're free to say whatever needs to be said, bold to go wherever we need to go. So don't let my present trouble on your behalf get you down. Be proud. And, just the sense that Paul is saying, it's not me, it's him you need to trust. And once you do that, you will have the boldness to step out and speak the word and correct people, in Christ.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't go the way you thought it was going to go, right? If we're obedient to God, what do we expect? His blessings. Do you think Paul expected his blessings to include him being in prison? And yet he's like, no, that's not a big deal. I'm still able to do what God's called me to do. I'm writing, I'm preaching, I'm doing it. God's still blessing my ministry. Don't be bummed that I'm in prison. It doesn't matter. He's like, it doesn't matter. Just keep going. It's working. It isn't. Don't think this is a failure. This is working, right? Sometimes we misalign what blessing and failure looks like in the kingdom. Yeah, Marco. Right up here. And then we'll go to the back. Perfect. I love it.
Hey, good morning. I get really disappointed because when you said we were going to put on our Hebrew glasses, I thought that you were going to hand out glasses that looked like Elton John glasses, but like shaped like the Star of David. But that's all right.
That's fair. I'd be disappointed too.
I've been doing the same job. You guys know I've been selling packaging for like 32 years, ever since I was a kid. And when you hire salespeople, there's so much to learn about packaging, janitorial, and stuff like that. Some people get in, and you hire them as salespeople, and they just jump right into it. And you go, you get in front of a customer, and you've got to listen to what the customer needs, and then you come back and let's discuss it and let's figure out a plan for the customer. Mm-hmm. And then some people go, no, I need to know everything there is to know before I go out and start doing this job. And you're like, there's too much. It's going to take you years. You can't ever know everything. And then they fail, and they get frustrated, and they start to lose faith, and they fall away, and one day they don't show up for work. And I, early on in my Christian walk, I thought that I had to learn. I thought I had to learn everything about Christianity, about the Lord, about the apostles, about the Old Testament before I could really start talking to people, And I'm reading how Paul says that that God is handling all the details. I don't know everything that's going on, but I know God's handling all the details, and and I'm the least qualified. But he just started talking to people. He just in obedience, he just started going, and that's an encouragement to me, and I think it should be encouragement to a lot of us, especially young Christians. You can't know everything first. You just have to trust the Lord, to give you the words, to practice loving people. And anyways, that's what stuck out to me.
I love that. Well, Bill's going to go, and as you're walking back there, it reminds me of this great story in the New Testament where this blind guy, Jesus heals his eyes. Jesus makes a blind man see. And the Pharisees start asking him about it. What happened? Tell us all the details. He's like, look, this is all I know. I was blind. Now I see. Go ask Jesus about the rest, right? My message is I was blind. in how I see. Sometimes it's just as simple like God has blessed me. He's changed my life. You got to meet him. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Hello. I love when Paul does this kind of thing, and he does it in a couple of his letters. He'll make these huge doctrinal kind of explorations so that we can have these really solid things to hold on to, truths about who Jesus is and how we are to relate to others, and how God is letting everybody into the kingdom through Jesus. And these things are like huge to take on. And then he'll put things in where he says, and he does this a lot too, and this is like, to me, this is really sticking out because it's how we're to relate to one another. He talks about, look, don't feel bad about where I am. In other places, he'll say, I'm so thankful for the really horrible things that have happened to me on your behalf. And he says, my life's work, in verse 7, is to help people understand and respond to the message. Over and over through this passage, he talks about reaching out to others and making others the focus of his life, in light of who he is in Christ. Not just that he's doing it because he wants to feel cool and awesome, but because of what Jesus did for him, he is now reaching out for others and on their behalf and suffering these really difficult things. And I think it's pretty excellent that we are also, as a church now, walking into our helping ministry again. And it's giving us an opportunity to extend ourselves into the community and to one another. And maybe there's opportunities where people in our very own church they're having the desire to help outwardly, right? But maybe they don't have the ability because of time or energy or whatever. But I really feel like there's an ability for us to help one another serve outwardly also. Maybe you can't go paint a wall, but maybe you could watch somebody's kids, or maybe you can take care of something that they needed to take care of on their behalf. Even when it comes to like clerical stuff, maybe some of you guys are really great with numbers and people have a really hard time, making their bills. Maybe they have the money, but they don't know how to make their bills really make ends meet. There's a lot of weird situations that we have just in life, and we can really serve one another if we are intertwined in one another's lives. So, I guess that's it.
I love it. I'm going to invite the worship team to come back up. And what we're going to do is we're just going to follow the pattern of what Paul is talking about here. So basically what I hear in this Ephesians chapter 3 is this. God has this mysterious plan. It's simple. It's always been his plan, but as humans, we've missed it over and over and over again. His plan is mysterious in this. God's plan is to bring messy people together. To bring messy people together, right? How many of you guys think that's a great plan? All right, I'm gonna bring messy people together, people from all different ways of thinking, political ideals, right? Lifestyles, family issues, people who have been, dealing with like their own trauma and their own like past scars, and people who are annoying and people who are easily annoyed. And we're gonna bring all these people together, and that's my plan, to make myself known to the whole world. How many of you guys think that's an awesome plan? Right? But this is what he's saying. This is the mystery. That is God's plan. That is God's plan. To bring us together. And the whole world is doing a terrible job at this. The whole world is divided more than ever. The whole world is fighting with each other. The whole world is demanding, listen to me, do it my way, be more like me. Why can't you all just do it the way I think you should do it? The whole world is doing that. And God's like, here's the mysterious plan. Come together and don't do that. Don't be like that. And he goes, for this reason, let me just get down on my knees right now and pray. God, may these people be different. May they experience the riches of your love. And may that change them. May that be enough to help them realize they don't have to be like the turmoil of the world. They can be different. They can overlook wrongs because that's what love does, right? If in 1 Corinthians 13, it overlooks wrongs. It does all the things like to love one another when it's hard. And so he prays that the church would be different. And then he goes like this at the end. I know that you guys think that's a tall order. I know that sounds impossible. I know it's like, yeah, how will it be different this time? So how does he end it? God is able to do more than you think he can do. God is able to do more than you can even ask or imagine. That is his plan. And I'm going to pray for you. And I want you to remember, like, it's not impossible for God. God can do it. So in this time, I want to just ask you to do this. I know that this is uncomfortable for some, but I want you just to get into groups of like 2 or 3 people, maybe the person that you came with. You don't have to be the one that speaks. Not everyone needs to pray, but I just want you guys to spend maybe a minute or 2 just praying for our church to be different than the world. And praying for the church, all the other churches, to be different than the world. And in that, to finally accomplish what God's been trying to do all along, to bring together a people, to bless them, people that would live differently, people that would welcome people differently. And may God do that in our generation. Raise up a church that is obedient in that way, that's filled with love. And may the whole world see the glory of God through that. Would you guys just stand, find 1 or 2 people, just begin praying as you want, and then we'll get into worship. And thank you for enduring the weirdest sermon ever. I love you guys.